Hello everyone and welcome to cg-plus.com. I'm Mosi Marti and you are on the last day of our introduction to Vue 9 xStream. As we all know, Vue 9 xStream is not a modeling program, but it has got some features that give you the ability to create some geometry. As an example of these features, the MetaBlob object. So what's the MetaBlob object? We're gonna see it in the upcoming. So I'm gonna just maximize my view here, and I'm gonna create two spheres, okay? And I'm gonna move this one right here and make it of a bigger size, and this one too here, and change its size, something like that, okay? And I will select these two spheres here and left click on this button here, which will create a MetaBlob object, okay? And as you can see in the preview, this option has added geometry between our two objects and it has connected them. If you take a closer look to our objects panel here, you can see that our sphere number 1 and sphere number 2 have been grouped into a group which is called MetaBlob, and it has got a peanut icon actually. So if we do a test render here, you can actually see how Vue has created this geometry between our two spheres here, and it's looking pretty good. So the MetaBlob has got also some options you can modify to fine-tune this geometry. So as an example to that, I'm gonna just double click on MetaBlob and we'll display the MetaBlob options. Here in the global options we have the envelope distance. So the envelope distance is actually the distance between the actual two objects and the geometry created. So to illustrate that, I'm going to take the envelope distance to 100%, and you'll automatically see the modifications here. As you can see, that is the envelope distance. I think it's pretty clear and pretty simple to understand. So I've made a drawing here to explain a bit what is the envelope distance, and I show you how it does actually work, or what is the envelope distance in a more simple way. Here we have our two spheres with two strokes. This is the out stroke, or the exterior stroke actually represents our created geometry, and the interior strokes around our spheres is actually the actual spheres. The distance, which is here represented by a blue arrow, is actually the envelope distance. And as you get higher the envelope distance, the two exterior strokes will intersect. And as we've seen with our renderings, when I just moved the envelope distance to 100%, we had just only a big half of spheres connected to each other with a harsh edge, as you can see here, these 2 points here. Here we have the mixed object contribution. You will, by modifying this, you will change the contribution of each object to our to the new created geometry. So you'll use this option to fine-tune your geometry. I think it's clear now and pretty simple. So to delete the MetaBlob object, we have to right click and go to ungroup objects, and it will automatically delete them. Okay, so I'm gonna just move my camera and center my two objects here. One of the new features in Vue 9 xStream is the hyperblobs. So what's the hyperblobs? I'm gonna explain to you. I'm gonna again select my two spheres and now right click on this icon. and it will ask me if I want to replace my actual materials with default hypertexture, because hyperblobs uses hypertextures. So I'm gonna click on replace all materials with default hypertexture. If I don't want, the hyperblob won't be created. Okay, so I'm gonna click on replace all materials, and here we don't see much difference, but in our preview we have this, I don't know, object here, a random object, as you can see, and also we have this group with peanut icon, and if you take closer look, you can see this little bump here, or bumps on the icon. I'm gonna select my first sphere, and I'm gonna move it closer, or I'll just make it go inside our bigger sphere, and I'm gonna do preview, and as you can see, I'm gonna just reduce the size. And as you can see here, it created some of a random rock or something like that. Okay, pretty interesting. So you can also move your object and have more random aspects. If I move it like that, just up of our bigger sphere, like that, you would actually see another type of object, something like that. So this is the hyperblob, and I encourage you that you try this new feature here, because it's very interesting. So I'm going to group my objects now, and just select my two objects like that, and delete them. And we're gonna take a look at our render settings and options here. If I just right click on this little camera here, we'll have the render options window which will pop up, and here we have some preset renders quality. Here you can choose any one of these presets here to have the quality, or to render the quality you want. So for example, you can use the final to create some nice images and final images. You can use broadcast to render some animation, superior and ultra, if you really have a big amount of detail, etc. So you need to pass through the ultra here, or the superior, to create some very fine-tuned images. You can also use the user settings and modify your option. As you can see, it's not as complicated as we would see with some rendering engines in, for example, 3D Studio Max with Manta Ray or V-Ray or so, Fry Render, etc. So you can simply modify your options. You can also here load render settings if you have saved any one of your settings, or just save a new one. You can use an internal render, an external one, on use the render node network. We have the render destination, so where your render will be displayed. So here we have in main view, as we see with the rendering, with preview renderings, we have the render to screen, so it will render in a new screen, as you can see here, or on new window. And I'll pause it. Okay, so I'm gonna right click again, and you have to render off screen, so it will automatically save your object or your image in the directory you specify here. Okay, so I'm gonna render in main view, or to screen. Next we have the rendering what, or render what. Here you can choose to render only selected object, the activated layer, or the visible layers, or just render everything. So you can render everything. This pretty useful when, for example, you want the footage for if you have forest, or I don't know, war stream or so, and you have a lot of trees, etc. You can only render your terrains, your water, etc., and then render your trees in another pass or something, so it will take a bit, maybe less time to render when you render everything. So here you can choose this option here, or when render lights, use modified hierarchy, hide infinite planes from alpha, etc. These are tweakings. If you want to see or to modify them, enable relighting, which is a new feature in Vue9 xStream, which will give you the ability, when once you rendered your image, to modify the lighting. So here I created a simple scene with 3 spots and the sunlight, and if I right click on my render on my camera, and I'll put here to preview, to final, and enable relighting here, and I'm gonna click on render and wait till my render is finished, just to show you what is relighting. So here's my render, it's on finished, and I'll click on this button here to open the post render option, and as you can see on your left we have a new menu or a new category, which is relighting. So here we can relight our scene. For example, if I decided to put this intensity here of the blue spot down, I'll just have to move this down here and click on preview, and as you can see the intensity has just dropped, and I can go again down and do a preview, and you can see it has 90% disappeared. And if I just take it to like 0, it will completely disappear, and this is does not really, and it's really done in some way that is impressive. For example, if you're doing some interior scenes or architectural visualization, and you have a spot of light which is too much bright, and you didn't see it or get it before rendering, you can use the relighting here to relight your scene, and it's quick and easy to use. You can also change here the color. I'm gonna try for something like yellow here. Okay, something like this, and as you can see it changed its color, and this in no time. So I can also modify the color of the sunlight if I wish to, and as you can see here, it's it starts having some nightclub ambience here also, and I can play with this like that. It's pretty awesome feature here, which it has been implemented into Vue9 xStream, so you can use it whenever you want, but the only constraint is that you cannot use it into a preview preset. Okay, so into final or user defined, and you can enable your lighting. So here I'm gonna disable it, and here we have some render quality, so you can apply materials or not. If you are testing your lighting, you can disable all the materials and test your lighting, your GI, etc., your indirect illumination, sorry, or global illumination. And then apply the materials again. You have to enable subrise, super sampling, etc. These are pretty simple and easy to modify. You can just check and check. You don't have to search for some values, etc. So it's pretty easy. Here we have advanced effects quality. So here you can play with this slider here to create a better quality or faster rendering times here. Okay, you have the anti-aliasing. You can object anti-aliasing and texture anti-aliasing. You can also edit here. We have some options: the subrise per pixel, etc. Texture filtering. You can check the view help here to see really how it does actually work to optimize your anti-aliasing. We have the indirect lighting solution. So for example, to speed up some renderings, you can use the same indirect lighting. Finally, we have the picture and size resolution here to modify your size resolution. Not that you have to be on here rendered to screen, so that the picture size and resolution will display. Here we have the render area, which is pretty common to some new render engines, where you can define an area to render. For example, you can render blow up. Also, we have the memory optimization, clear OpenGL data before render, so we will clear all the data of OpenGL, and so you have more resources, etc., so more memory. And now let's see the panoramic view. Firstly, I'm gonna reset view, and I'm gonna choose, for example, this one here, high altitude atmosphere, and double click. I don't want to save, and as you can see here, we have these clouds, our terrain. I can, for example, change my terrain to some liquids material. Let's see, the blue water here, for example. Okay, that's pretty well. And now I'm gonna right click on my render options, go to final now, and render to screen, and now activate panoramic view. So here it will tell you or give you the ability to choose the angle of the panoramic view. So I want 360 degrees, and now we can choose spherical render if you are doing a spherical mapping, but let's just try the panoramic view first and do render. So I'm gonna choose a pretty low size here and do render. And as you can see here, we have this panoramic view, which is pretty interesting. Doesn't it give you an idea? Yeah. Do some renderings and then use them as an HDRI or an environment map. So I'm gonna here check spherical render, and maybe choose a bigger size here and do a render. Think it's alright. Okay, I'll wait for the render to end, and then I'll be back. Here's the render once it's finished. It's looking pretty good actually. We have here a good amount of lightning here. Sorry, a good amount of lightning here. It's looking pretty realistic. The clouds are pretty nice. Here the water can be needs more work, but it's alright. You need just to click on this button and choose from your file types the type high dynamic range HDRI, and save your image. And here it will ask you for some precisions. It will tell you that the post-processing options, etc., will limit the dynamic range of images, etc. So would you like to disable them? Would you like to disable the options that affect the dynamic range of your image? And I ask yes, and it will save your image. And it's alright, now you have your dynamic range. So you can create any atmosphere, any kind of scene you want, any kind of sky of atmosphere, and export it into a high dynamic range and use it in 3D Studio Max, or just sell it. This depend on what you create and what you want to do. Now we're gonna see how to create some planets in Vue 9 xStream. So first of all, what I need to do is go to the procedural terrain icon and right click, and I create an infinite terrain here, which is the natural here, and double click, and it will ask me if I want to discard the existing ground plane, and I answer yes. Here it asks me if I want to see the sea level, and this will add a hidden sea level object to your scene, so we'll create some for realistic atmosphere rendering, and I'll ask yes. And now if I double click here, you can see that we are not seeing anything, because that, if I just minimize my view, here you can see we just had to move the camera a bit, and as you can see, it's really infinite. And as, for example, if I just go up, and you can see that actually it's more than infinite. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, now the blue effect that we had is due to that my aerial perspective was set to 10. Okay, and the default is 1, so I put it back to 1. And as you can see here, we have a very infinite view, so we cannot see the limit of our plane, and that's pretty nice. So how will we create a planet going from our uh, infinite terrain? So let's do that. What I'm gonna do is firstly go to File, Options, Units and Coordinates, and here comes the magic. First of all, I want to show sea level in 3D views and show sea in renders. Okay, so we're gonna see how does our sea level is positioned according to our terrain. So here looks pretty good. Next, I'm gonna go again to File, Options, and I'm gonna activate Spherical Scene, and here I can choose the scene radius, which is actually 6400 kilometers or 6,400 kilometers, which is the actual Earth's radius. I'm gonna like that, and I'm gonna use a planetary terrain. So here it will say to me that switching to planetary terrains may modify my infinite plane. So I'm gonna click on OK, and then click on OK. And if I just zoomed out here, you can see that actually Vue used our infinite terrain to create a planetary terrain, as you can see here. And if I just moved my camera a bit, something like that, you can actually, sorry for that, I'm gonna move it like that far away, and then not rotate it. And as you can see here, Vue actually created an entire planet for us, and this is how it does actually look. So here we don't really see our terrain, but how can we adjust that? Is just by selecting our sea, zooming in our front view or side view here, and just move it down, something like that. Move it a bit down again, so we'll have some of our terrain that appears. As you can see here, I think it's looking pretty nice. Yeah, so here we have some of our terrain, and as you can see also with our procedural terrain, we have this amount of detail, which is always impressive. So you can modify the material as you want. Okay, so there is no limits. I can go to landscape and choose any one of these, and you can see that it automatically modifies it. So back to normal. Now what I'm gonna do is load an atmosphere. Is atmosphere, loud atmosphere, and I'm gonna choose something not really dense, high altitude maybe, or yeah, sunny seaside, something like that. And if we just do a preview here, you can see that our how can we say, our clouds are too small, sorry, and actually it looks like grains. So we need to modify that. And how to do this is going through the atmosphere editor, going to clouds, and then modifying the scale to something much bigger, like 300. And then if we just refresh, you can see that our clouds are bigger, and but we have also to modify the cover, for example here, so that we have more clouds here, and also the density, for example, and also the size maybe to like 500, and just do a render again. And as you can see here, we created a planet simply using Vue. Okay, it's really decent as a result, but you just got the idea of it, how it does actually work. You can take the level a bit high and create something like that, which is a scene provided on your extra CD. For example, here they drive their clouds. They use the cloud map and drive their clouds by a function, if I can say, but a map, not a function, just a cloud map. And this is and as you can see here, they just used a cloud layer here, and the earth, which is actually a terrain. So this is pretty high level. If you want to try like that with your name or something like that, you can try and create something interesting. So depending on your inspiration. So I think we covered pretty much. I think we've seen everything of the planetary train. So you can easily, from the options here, scale, modify the radius. Here you can create something like this one, 100,000 kilometers, or simply modify the latitude and the longitude here. So be creative. I think we've covered pretty much everything of V9 xStream now, and you're ready to start on your own or to work on your own. So I hope you really enjoyed this software, enjoyed this series of tutorial, and by following us you've learned something. So stay tuned on CG Talks Plus and be creative.